You know that feeling when you're juggling a million things, work, family, just trying to remember where you put your keys again, and your brain just feels completely scattered.
Mm-hmm. Like all the open apps on your phone are suddenly screaming for attention at once.
Exactly. Or maybe you're talking to someone and you just have this huge urge to blurt out everything you're thinking. Sometimes maybe surprising them a bit.
Yeah.
If any of that sounds familiar, you are definitely in the right place today.
And if those feelings, feeling overwhelmed or finding it hard to focus or maybe dealing with really intense emotions, if that resonates, then looking at self care strategies specifically designed for that could be, well, really helpful.
Definitely. And that's exactly what we're doing today.
It is.
We're diving into Caroline Singer's The Adult ADHD Self-Care Handbook.
Great book.
Yeah, and our mission really is to pull out the most practical ADHD-friendly tips to help navigate daily life. We're talking small things,
Hmm.
doable adjustments that can make a real difference, not some massive life overhaul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's just overwhelming in itself, isn't it?
Totally.
And what I like about this handbook is just how much ground it covers. It goes from like really understanding what adult ADHD is
Right.
to super practical advice for social stuff, managing feelings, even physical health like sleep, nutrition.
hmm
It's pretty comprehensive.
So we're going to try and distill some of that down, make it feel, supportive and easy to grasp.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the basics maybe. Getting a handle on what adult ADHD actually is. Chapter 2 in the book really unpacks this.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that jumped out at me was this idea of popcorn brain.
Ah, yeah. It's such a great description, isn't it?
It really is.
Like picturing your thoughts as these kernels just popping off
Uh,
constantly, new ideas,
which
connections.
sounds great, and it can be for creativity.
Right. Quick thinking.
But it also makes it incredibly hard to just stick with one thing when your brain's going off in 50 different directions.
Exactly. It's not just about, choosing not to focus. The book breaks it down into three main types or presentations.
Okay.
There's the predominantly inattentive type, which, interestingly, Singer notes is often underdiagnosed, especially in women.
Yeah, I saw that. That's important.
Then the predominantly hyperactive impulsive type, maybe the more stereotypical image people have.
Right. More outward energy.
And then the combined type, which is, well, a mix of both.
Okay. And it's not just behavior, right? The book talks about actual brain differences.
Yeah, it does. Singer points to research showing differences in certain brain areas, like the prefrontal cortex, super important for planning and decisions,
Mhm.
and the basal ganglia and cerebellum involved in movement and coordination. These areas can be structurally a bit different, often smaller.
And then there's the chemistry side of it, too,
Yeah.
like dopamine.
Exactly. Dopamine and norepinephrine. These are neurotransmitters, the brain's messengers.
Yeah.
And the way they're regulated seems to be different in ADHD.
So dopamine, that's linked to reward and motivation, right?
Yeah. Yes. Which might explain why tasks that don't give you that immediate hit of satisfaction can feel like, well, pushing a giant rock uphill.
Okay, that makes sense. And norepinephrine.
That's more about focus, alertness, how you respond to things around you. So, differences in how these chemicals work really contribute to what we call executive function challenges.
Right. And that's things like planning, organizing, time management, finishing tasks.
Crucial skills. And it's vital to understand, like Singer emphasizes, this isn't about being lazy or not trying hard enough. It's a neurological difference.
Yeah, it's how the brain is wired,
Yeah,
which helps bust some myths, doesn't it?
definitely.
Like the idea that ADHD is just a childhood thing you grow out of. The book makes it clear that's not true, though it might look different in adults.
And it's certainly not caused by bad parenting or anything like that. There's a strong genetic link. It often runs in families.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier about women often being missed.
Hmm.
That ties into how ADHD can present differently. Well, historically, a lot of the research focused on hyperactive boys. So the inattentive type, more common in girls and women, wasn't always picked up.
Oh,
So women might go undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, and they might internalize those struggles, feeling, ashamed or inadequate because they find things like organization or multitasking harder than society expects them to.
that's rough. Understanding the why is so important then.
It really is. It's the foundation.
Okay, so foundation laid. But this handbook is super practical. Let's talk about social situations. Chapters 3 and 4 cover this. And, that bit about small talk feeling awkward, I think a lot of people feel that.
Oh, for sure. And Singer validates why it can be extra tough with ADHD. Maybe it's not stimulating enough for a brain craving novelty.
Right.
Or working memory makes it hard to track the conversation. Or maybe you just prefer deeper chats. That feeling of being out of sync in casual conversation can be really draining.
So true. But there are strategies. The book offers some really concrete things like active listening.
Yeah, and it breaks that down. Things like open body language, making eye contact comfortably, of course,
Mm.
asking open-ended questions, not just yes-no ones, really thinking about how you phrase things to invite more conversation.
I like the ping pong game analogy for conversation.
Me too. It gives that visual of the back and forth rhythm.
And building on what the other person says, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly. And being okay with pauses, that was a good one. Not feeling like you have to fill every single silence. It gives you time to process.
Right. Shows you're actually listening. And what about interrupting? Because sometimes your brain makes a connection and you just have to share it.
Yeah, that urge. The book suggests simple physical things like gently pinching your fingers together or taking a slow breath, just a little anchor to help you hold that thought until it's your turn.
Little tricks, but they can probably make a big difference in how the conversation feels.
And also avoiding that phrase, I knew that already, even if you did. Responding with enthusiasm or asking a follow-up question just keeps things so much more positive.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, what about oversharing?
Yeah.
That's another thing Chapter 4 tackles. And honestly, I think lots of people can relate to that, ADHD or not.
Absolutely. That desire to connect, show empathy by sharing your own experiences. Sometimes it just tips over into revealing more than you meant to.
Yeah.
And if you think about that strong desire for connection plus maybe heightened emotional responses with ADHD, it kind of makes sense why oversharing might happen.
So how do you manage it?
Singer offers some neat tools,
Hmm.
like the mental stoplight. Red, stop, pause. Yellow, think this is appropriate right now. Green, okay, go ahead. Just a quick internal check.
A mental pause button. I like that.
And just developing more self-awareness in the moment, kind of stepping back mentally and asking, is this the right time and place?
That takes practice, I imagine.
It does. But also setting some personal boundaries beforehand, even just in your own head, about what you generally feel comfortable sharing.
Right.
And paying attention to nonverbal cues from the other person. Are they leaning in or looking away? That can tell you a lot.
And remembering, you can always steer the conversation gently, if needed.
Exactly. You have that power.
Okay, let's shift to friendships now. Chapter 5 talks about how maintaining friendships can have unique challenges with ADHD.
Yeah, things stemming from those executive function issues we talked about, like just remembering to reach out.
Or feeling overwhelmed by the effort involved sometimes.
Right, or struggling to initiate contact, even with people you really like. Plus, social anxiety, maybe emotional regulation bumps, procrastination.
It's a lot. But again, the book offers very practical, ADHD-friendly solutions for each thing.
It does. For forgetfulness, use timers, reminders, put check-in with friends in your calendar, schedule it.
Takes the mental load off trying to remember spontaneously.
Exactly. And if you forget to reply to a text, the advice is just write back as soon as you remember or see it, even if it's short.
Yeah, better than letting it sit there making you feel guilty. And being honest with close friends about your texting style helps too.
Totally. And for feeling overwhelmed, take it slow. Use low-energy communication, send a meme, an emoji. Connection doesn't always have to be a huge effort.
That's reassuring. And for initiating contact, having a few preset, gentle opener messages ready.
Genius. Takes away that blank page paralysis.
Yeah. And for social anxiety, just start small, be kind to yourself. Remember, real friends will likely just be happy to hear from you.
The chapter also mentions identifying friends you feel safe talking to when you are struggling emotionally.
That's important.
And using things like the 2-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes to send that quick text, just do it now. Don't procrastinate.
Love that rule.
Yeah.
And using digital tools for planning get-togethers can help with the organization side too.
Absolutely. Things like shared calendars or doodle polls can make it much less daunting.
Okay, let's switch gears again. Anxiety. Chapter 8 tackles this, and it can be a really big challenge for adults with ADHD, right?
Yeah, definitely. That feeling of racing thoughts, maybe impulsivity feeding into anxiety, it's common. And this is where mindfulness comes in as a really useful tool.
Mindfulness. Sometimes it feels like a big, vague concept, though.
Singer presents it really practically, not as achieving some perfect Zen state, but as tools to ground you in the present when things feel chaotic, ways to quiet the internal noise.
Okay, practical. I like practical.
She introduces 6 5-minute techniques. That feels doable, right?
5 minutes. Yeah, okay. What are they?
Deep belly breathing, the balloon belly idea. Box breathing, that's inhale, hold, exhale, hold for 4 counts each.
Okay.
The 4-7-8 breath. Mindful eating, really focusing on senses, slowing
Yeah,
down.
try that.
A body scan meditation, just noticing sensations without judgment.
Mhm.
And mindful walking, focusing on your steps, your surroundings, your breath while you walk.
So short, accessible things you can weave into the day.
Exactly, little resets. And she also recommends 5 specific apps with their websites, which is super helpful if you want guided practice. Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer.
Happier, simple habit. We
Yeah.
can put those links somewhere for people.
Good idea. They provide tangible resources.
Okay, last big area, emotional well-being. Chapter 9 talks about emotional decluttering. I love that phrase.
Me too. The analogy of a cluttered room for a mind full of unprocessed feelings and stress, it really clicks.
Yeah, you can picture it. Stress, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, constantly reacting. Just mental clutter.
And connecting that back to the emotional intensity often seen with ADHD, you can see how that clutter builds up. But decluttering isn't about ignoring feelings.
Right. It's about acknowledging them, understanding them, then processing them.
Precisely. And the main tool here is journaling.
Journal.
But not in a scary, high-pressure way, just as a safe space to get thoughts out, create distance, see patterns, identify triggers.
Like the brain dump idea.
Yeah, that's a great specific technique mentioned. Just write down everything swirling in your head. It gets it out, then you can maybe organize or prioritize it.
Clears the mental decks a bit.
It really can. And she briefly mentions gratitude journaling, too, for boosting positive feelings.
So how do you start journaling if it feels daunting?
The book gives great tips. Use any format notebook, app, voice notes. Don't worry about frequency. Start small. Use prompts if a blank page is scary. Write unfiltered. Don't worry about perfection.
No right or wrong way. That takes the pressure off.
Exactly. And there's also a good point about guided journals, especially for ADHD.
Oh, so?
The structure and prompts can help with focus, reduce that what do I write, decision fatigue, and guide reflection on specific things like emotions or goals.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot from this handbook. Understanding ADHD, social stuff, friendships, anxiety, emotional decluttering. As we wrap up, what are the main takeaways you think someone listening should hold on to?
I think the biggest thing is that self-care with ADHD isn't about huge, drastic changes. It's about small, consistent, intentional choices that actually fit with how your brain works.
Tailored strategies.
Exactly. Understanding yourself better, being mindful in interactions, finding realistic ways to nurture friendships, using simple tools like mindfulness for anxiety, and finding ways like journaling to process emotions.
And for you listening, maybe just pick 1 or 2 things we talked about that sparked something for you, something that felt doable,
Yeah.
and just try it out.
Yeah. Small steps. Be kind to yourself in the process.
Definitely.
Which actually leads nicely into a final thought for you to ponder. Later in the book, Singer mentions this concept of the neurodivergent spoon drawer.
Spoon drawer, like spoon theory.
Similar, but nuanced. It's about having different types of energy, like physical spoons, mental spoons, social spoons, and different activities drain different drawers.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So the question to think about is, if you consider your energy not just as one big pool, but these different types, how might that change how you approach your self-care and planning?
Like knowing which activities drain which specific spoons for you. Exactly. How could that awareness help you manage your energy more effectively, maybe more kindly? It's just something interesting to reflect on as you move forward.